Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. Fellas, it is at the end of a long day. I was planning on wrapping it up and turning out the lights and just hanging out for the rest of the night, but I pulled a book off of one of my shelves that is near and dear to my heart. You've heard me talk about it many times in this podcast, called The Way of the Superior Man. And I popped open to a chapter that I absolutely needed to read about fear that I want to share with you in a moment. And I'll read that passage to you. But first, today we are going to talk about facing fear by leaning just beyond your edge. Now, if you remember Monday's conversation, I talked about adjusting to the new normal. Now, Monday was not like any other Monday. It was a bit surreal for many of us. And I found that for myself and many of the folks that I reached out to, we were resisting this new normal. We had not fully dropped into the experience because we're giving up certain areas of comfort and safety and security in our lives right now to the unknown. I don't know too many people who are thrilled about being relegated to their homes, quarantined to their homes for an indefinite period of time. Hey, for some of you, that may be just like a vacation, and good on you. But for many of us, myself included, there was resistance. And in that episode, I talked about the 3 obstacles that I was facing that were preventing me from fully dropping into and embracing this new normal. And I'll encourage you to go back and listen to those 3 obstacles, but you could chunk them up to one category, blanketed by fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of sacrifice, fear of loss, fear of discomfort, fear of not knowing. My fears, as are your fears, are preventing you from accepting this new reality and then charting a powerful path forward, assuming that you still have some of those fears, right? Some of you have fully dropped in, and that's awesome. Maybe you're just faster than the rest of us. So I also talked about developing strategies that help you accelerate and drop into this experience that allow you to embrace where we are. And I had 3 strategies for me, and I encourage you to develop your own. And my 3 strategies were, number 1, creation, number 2, relationships, and number 3, buried treasures. So number 1, creation. Like I'm creating right now. I've been recording daily podcasts. I've been creating forums and communities for my men that are in my mastermind and for other men that I support to come together and speak and to have their needs met. I've been creating more newsletters and more social media posts just so that people can feel they have a source to come to stabilize their own internal way of being. And I would say kind of combined with that is that second category of relationships. Through many of those means, I've been developing and deepening relationships, but I've also been reaching out one-on-one to people in my life who I care about, who need the extra support. By doing that, I feel like I'm dropping into this experience by supporting the people in my life. And then the third category was what led to this podcast, which was uncovering buried treasures in my new world. Meaning, now that I'm at home more often, or actually all the time, I was going through certain cabinets that I hadn't opened up in years and going through photo albums, buried treasures of experiences that I hadn't dusted off in years, buried treasures in books that like I pulled off the shelf with David Deida, The Way of the Superior Man, buried treasures inside of me by sitting down and meditating and uncovering certain things that were hidden. But in this particular case, the buried treasure was a book. And I can't exactly call The Way of the Superior Man a buried treasure because I probably refer to that book once per week. And this passage that I want to read to you, I think about regularly, but I don't believe I've actually read the entire chapter in over a year. So these words did feel like I'd uncovered a treasure because every time I read this book, I uncover something new. So what I'd like to do is read for you this chapter 8, called Lean Just Beyond Your Edge. And it's a chapter about facing your fear in a powerful way. And I believe that one of the most special things or intimate things that you could do is read someone a chapter from a book that really has changed your life or that's resonated with you on a deep level. I know that I've done this in some of my partnerships, and I'd like to do that with you. And at the end of reading this, I'll just provide a few short reflections. and then you'll be on your way for the day. So here you have it. Lean just beyond your edge. In any given moment, a man's growth is optimized if he leans just beyond his edge, his capacity, his fear. He should not be too lazy, happily stagnating in the zone of security and comfort, nor should he push far beyond his edge, stressing himself unnecessarily, unable to metabolize his experience. He should lean just slightly beyond the edge of fear and discomfort, constantly, in everything he does. Once you are honest with yourself about your real edge, it is best to lean just beyond it. Very few men have the guts for this practice. Most men will either settle for the easy path or self-aggrandize themselves by taking the extreme hard path. Your insecurity may cause you to doubt yourself, and so you take the easy way, not even approaching your real edge or your real gift. Alternatively, your insecurity may lead you to push, seeking to become victorious over your own sense of lack. Both approaches avoid your actual condition in the moment, which is often fear. If you are stressfully avoiding your fear, you cannot relax into the fearless. Your fear is the sharpest definition of yourself. You should know it. You should feel it virtually, constantly. Fear needs to become your friend so that you are no longer uncomfortable with it. Rather, primary fear shows you that you are at your edge. Staying with the fear, staying at your edge allows real transformation to occur. Neither lazy nor aggressive, playing your edge allows you to perceive the moment with the least amount of distortion. You are willing to be with what is rather than trying to escape it by pulling back from it or trying to escape it by pushing beyond it into some future goal. Fear of fear may lead you to hang back, living a lesser life than you are capable. Fear of fear may lead you to push ahead, living a false life, off-center, tense, and missing the moment. But the capacity to feel this moment, including your fear, without trying to escape it, creates a state of alive and humble spontaneity. You are ready for the unknown as it unfolds, since you are not pulled back or pushed forward from the horizon of the moment. You are hanging right over the edge. By leaning just beyond your fear, you challenge your limits compassionately without trying to escape the feeling of fear itself. You step beyond the solid ground of security with an open heart. You stand in the space of unknowingness, raw and awake. Here, the gravity of deep being will attend you to the only place where fear is obsolete, the eternal freefall of home, where you always are. Own your fear and lean just beyond it in every aspect of your life, starting now. Like so much of David Deida's work, there are many layers to his teachings. As I let those words wash over me, I can feel how some of those words changed my life years ago, particularly this concept of leaning just beyond my edge in everything I do. If I'm not feeling that fear or that little bit of throw up in my mouth, then I recognize that I'm not playing a big enough game or a game that I'm capable of. Today, when I read those words, what sunk in most deeply was feeling the fear on a regular basis allows me to know that I'm actually playing at my edge and not withdrawing from the fear or ignoring it or running away from it or not aggressively pushing past it by pushing or setting some new goal or making myself busy during this period of time, but to actually stay in that perfectly calibrated place where I can feel my fear constantly in everything I do, not paralyzed by it, not commanded by it, but like it being my compass. And that reminds me of the tremendous work that Stephen Pressfield did in his book, The War of Art, where he talks about how we have two lives that we live, right? The life that we live and the unlived life within us, right? That's almost like the definition of hell you hear me talking about, where at the end of your life, the man that you became meets the man that you could have become. Stephen Pressfield talks about how we have the life that we lived within this unlived life of potential within us, and standing between those two lives is resistance, our fear. And when we run away from the fear, we retreat back into what's comfortable. And I certainly know what that's like, but I also certainly know what it's like to plow forward through the fear and to numb it out or to try and smother it out by being so busy, by doing so much that I actually am hurting myself in the process. The other day when all of the conferences that I'm supposed to be keynote speaking at canceled or pushed it off indefinitely into the future. Many of the events where we hadn't signed contracts yet that were going to be a big part of my lifeblood financially for the next few months backed out because of all the conferences that are being canceled. Many of the workshops and retreats that I planned on running have to be postponed. When that started happening, this initial fear kicked up that was pushing me to go out and sell something, go back into one-on-one coaching, go do this thing, fill your pipeline. And I could feel that. And that old conditioning in the past would have driven me to take action from a place of fear. Instead, my conditioning, my practice from reading this book years ago and meditating and my coaching that I've hired to help me fortify my inner foundation has allowed me to actually feel that fear, let that pass, and then see what's left. And what's left is that now I am playing at my edge, having trust in the fact that I've got this, that I will weather this storm, that all of the work that I'm doing right now in support of the people that matter most and the people who need the help, that will pay off. I'm sowing the seeds right now to reap the harvest later, as one of my mentors, George Bryant, would say. So now is an opportunity for you to reflect about where you are in relationship to fear right now. Are you shrinking back from what you're afraid of? Or are you plowing way too far ahead, propelled and commanded by your fear? Or are you in that perfectly calibrated place that Deida writes about, leaning just beyond your edge, constantly in everything you do? When we are no longer afraid of fear, when we can feel the fear in this present moment and be with it and not be commanded by it and not shrink back from it, this is when we lead from the front. This is when we are at our best. This is when we grow. This is when we are the most desirable in the eyes of our romantic partners. This is the best version of ourselves. And so as we are in this new arena, we are going to be confronted with all of the faces of fear, many of which are familiar to us, and many new ones that have yet to show their faces. This is no longer, the presence of fear is no longer a sign of failure or that we're doing something wrong. In actuality, as Deida writes, it's the confirmation that we are at our edge, leaning out over in everything that we do.